Tonight, the cost of war. Soon, President Trump could ask Congress for $200 billion to fund the war with Iran. But that's going to be a hard sell on Capitol Hill. Sources tell CNN that Republican leaders don't think they have the votes for it. Earlier, Trump defended that price tag, claiming that it's a small price of doing business.
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. At the high end, we have a lot, but we're preserving it. We don't really need it. But we're building. We want to be sure, and it's a small price to pay to make sure that we stay tippy-top.
Pete Hegseth was even more blunt with his assessment.
It takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future.
Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego points out that it cost $140 billion a year at the height of the Iraq War to fund that conflict, adding that if the Pentagon is going to ask for $200 billion, they are asking for a long war. The answer is simply no. And Lydia, it's not just Congressman Gallego. Here's what Lauren Boebert said earlier today about this.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere. I am tired of the industrial war complex getting all of our hard-earned tax dollars. I have folks in Colorado who can't afford to live. We need America First policies right now, and that I'm not doing that.
Lydia, isn't that what Trump ran on? I mean, he's already plussed up the DOD budget by 50%, $1.5 trillion for the fiscal year, and now $200 billion on top of that?
So first, what I'd say, fundamentally, the role of the government is to protect and defend its citizens. And the artificial intelligence, the weaponry that we're deploying is astonishing in what we're able to accomplish. That costs a lot of money, and it's also part of the reason that I think fewer men have lost their lives in this conflict. What I'd also say is that it's interesting that now Democrats are outraged about spending money on war. We spent $175 billion on Ukraine, a war we weren't even in. Nancy Pelosi rallied for it, said that it was a victory for democracy.
Well,
and
look,
everyone was thrilled to spend that, again, on Ukraine. Why not in Iran, a war that we're already in supporting?
Not in 1 year. Most of that money, a portion of that money, about 40% of it, hasn't even been spent. What you're talking about.
But this
is a 3-week conflict that they have already. They've only told us they've spent $11 billion in 6 days. Now they're asking for $200 billion. I think it's not just Democrats, but it's Republicans asking. That's a burn ratio that is enormous, even for expensive conflicts.
Right. I mean, war makes strange bedfellows. You know, Ruben Gallego and Lauren Boebert. I'm quoting Tulsi Gabbard. Like, you know, things are going weird in 2026 for sure. But you have to ask yourself the question: if Trump says the war is going to end very soon, then what's the $200 billion for? Because if the war is going to end very soon, then it doesn't cost $200 billion. And he gave us a hint. He said, I want you to fund the next war. What's that one? Oh, it's Cuba. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to take Cuba. What does that mean? Don't worry about it. And
don't
that's
you think maybe we don't want to telegraph to the enemy our exact
timeline?
Don't you think we want to signal to them
not telegraphing
that we don't have enough money?
I wish they would at least tell the president, because he doesn't seem to know how long this is going to take.
The problem is that MAGA stands for absolutely nothing. And let that radiate headlines across social media and everything else. You talk about America first, but you have people out here who cannot make ends meet. You have prices at the tank skyrocketing daily. You have American soldiers dying. And then you have the audacity to tell congresspersons that they're supposed to come back and vote for a $200 billion supplemental for a war we don't know how we're going to get out of, how much it's going to cost, or how many lives are going to be used and die as a result of something with no objectives. And so, yeah, I'm
and then
struggling.
Another war to be named later. Can we just take one beat on taking Cuba? Does anyone care that we're going to take
Let's let Scott answer your question or respond to all of that. Go ahead, Scott.
A few things. Number one, I made a few phone calls to Capitol Hill tonight to some senior Republicans. I do think the president's going to get some support. I talked to Mitch McConnell, actually. He is the chairman of the Defense subcommittee on appropriations. He's going to support the president on it. A member of leadership told me they hadn't gotten the details. Nothing formal had been submitted, but it was going to get a thorough review. And in the House, interestingly, there's been a debate going on in the Republican conference about whether to do a reconciliation package, and they may use this supplemental request to jumpstart that. So it may not just be a defense supplemental that gets voted on. It could be other things that would be part of a larger.
Sure, but let me just add to that. Look, listen.
You're gonna have Lindsey.
Listen. Be that as it may, the Republicans have a razor-thin majority in the House. So you've got Lauren Boebert. Here's Chip Roy asking, "What are we doing?" We're talking about boots on the ground. We're talking about the kind of extended activity. They got a whole lot more briefing and a whole lot more explaining to do on how we're going to pay for it and what's the mission here. Thomas Massey says it begs the question, how long do they plan to be there? What are the goals? Is the first 200 billion, is this the first 200 billion? Does it turn into $1 trillion? So they have some hurdles to climb,
yes.
and rightfully so, because $200 billion, just to be clear, is a lot of money. The Afghanistan war, $825 billion over 20 years, okay? 20 years.
So they asked this year for $28 billion extra to pay for munitions. So, and we did need to improve the defense industrial base, but now we have gotten ourselves into so much more of a hole that we have to ask for $200 billion more. Now, I am not a peacenik here in any way. I think that we need to be prepared for war. And this war is making us less prepared for the real threats that we have. It's a war of choice, in my view. And we have just expended unbelievable amounts of the exact same weapons that we need to protect ourselves from China. So we're in this huge hole now. I don't know if it's a 200 billion hole, but just yesterday, the U.S. debt reached $39 trillion. By October 1, it will be $40 trillion. By doing this, we are adding to our huge budget deficit and our huge debt, and this is
the vast
war of
majority
choice.
of that is because of entitlements. Like, let's be very clear.
Not necessarily. It's also from Lydia. It's from tax cuts that have not been paid for since the Bush administration. It's from spending that has not been paid for by either Republican or Democrat administrations.
I mean,
it's from
the
entitlement. It's from
Office
entitlement
says
reform that has
$500 billion.
Hold on. It's from entitlement
on fraud
reform
each
that
year.
has. We are talking about trillions of dollars.
I'm
We're
aware.
not talking
I'm
about
just
billions of dollars.
saying
We are talking about trillions of dollars. We're talking about more. We're talking about more in interest payments.
Here at play.
We are talking about more in interest payments than anything else that we pay for. So again, she's making a good point that when we have, as a nation, choosing what we do with our money, that's what Lauren Boebert's talking about. That's what Donald Trump, by the way, was talking about when he ran for president in 2016. And he said we should be spending our money at home, not on regime change in the Middle East. Literally last year in the Middle East, he went to Saudi Arabia and he talked about no more regime change. And what a year it has been, because here we are ousting Venezuela. We are trying to engage in regime change in Iran and maybe in Cuba too. Are there principles? I'm going to go back to Bakari's question. Let me go back to Bakari's
we
question.
didn't change the regime in Iran either.
Are there MAGA principles, or is it just what Donald Trump feels like doing on any given day?
Well, if you ask Donald Trump, he's called out Marjorie Taylor Greene and people who disagree with him, saying, I am MAGA. So that's his definition. MAGA is very supportive of this war. And it's really a following of Donald Trump.
But
That's he invented it.
Tangibly, one of the things we talked about in the break, and tangibly, I just want to highlight this because I think it's important, is you have farmers right now because of this war that are paying a higher price for fertilizer. And you know more about this than I do. And diesel, right? And so we're not talking about some esoteric ideal, right? And when you have people just a month ago, we were on this show arguing about subsidies, year-long subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, so people could have access to health care, right? So that we could actually fill gaps in Medicaid, so that we could expand health care, those type of ideals. But then you tell me that we have enough money to fund a war that we're not sure objectively how we get out of it.
So what
And the
I would,
next
so I
war
would say, I would
that-
say,
that we
look,
haven't
I
even
would like to
started.
see more clear messaging from the White House.
Oh, well,
I would like to see him
hell,
address
we
the
can go to
American
commercial
people.
break now.
What I also want to say though is I speak with a lot of folks in the defense tech space. This is really a strategic moment when we talk about the adoption of AI. China is looking at exactly what we're doing, and so they see this as an investment. We're trying to reshore more manufacturing facilities here to the U.S. so we can produce more as a deterrent. So I would say this is sort of a seminal moment when you think about technology and defense, and I think it's important in this time
For sure.
to make that
Yes, that's
investment
true.
as
But are we
hopefully
starting a war so that
deterrent.
we
Yeah,
can
a
reconstitute
lot of
our
defense companies.
AI
but I
industrial
do think
tech
this
base?
is a seminal moment where China is watching what
You
we're
are
doing.
right about this. This is a seminal strategic moment. And what I worry about is at the end of this, the countries that are benefiting the most from this are Russia and China. And that's the thing. It's like the second and third order unintended consequences, and this happens no matter what your foreign policy is. The world is connected, it's hard. But unintended consequences here is that Russia, President Trump was, in my view, very, very bold in finally taking a step that Biden wasn't willing to do in actually sanctioning the oil and the gas from Russia. And guess what? At the beginning of this year, their oil sales revenue went down 50% because of what President Trump did. Now they're getting such a windfall that they will make up for what they were going to lose, plus much, much more. So that's a problem.
And also unsanctioning temporarily Iranian oil as well. So there are a lot of things going on there.
Everything's going according to plan.
Yeah. Next for us, the White House has some new spin for those higher gas prices. Things could be much worse. But is that really how voters feel? We'll debate that next.
Karen